love to point out that the merit of extending horizons does not only lie in the horizontal geographical dimension, but we should also pick up the vertical historical dimension. If in certain modern or postmodern problems such as urban rural disparity, we have each other to learn from, then in others, we have the history to consult to. I'd love to extend my horizons on Western Asia or Middle East, or Central Asia, which I'm still not yet that familiar with, and the conference in Dubai is certainly a golden opportunity in that regard. But to make my point here, I would love to refer to my colleague Dhriti Roy, an assistant professor of Chinese culture at Sikkim University, India. When we were attending the Second Interdisciplinary Symposium for emerging scholars on Indian China studies in New York City earlier this month, she was confronted with a question about what's the purpose of studying the Sino-Indian Buddhism exchange in the 5th century, especially given that the whole world now seems to be perceiving the two countries as rivals in their quest for global power. In her answer, she brought us the astounding, if not the shameful contrast between 5,000 years of cooperation versus just 50 years of competition. Indeed, there are reasons to feel shameful. We already have an excellent record of wealth accumulation, better than any generation before us. But is this brilliant development outcome indiscriminately transformed into the equal access to developing opportunities in the arena of health and education? And on the spiritual front, are we more peaceful, generous, friendly, and content than our ancestors? Hardly so. Instead, military insurgence keeps popping out in South Asia, in Indochina, and more frequently in the Middle East, seriously impeding the prospects for Asia's prosperity as a whole. What India's first Prime Minister Nehru has said about 60 years ago is still applicable to today's situation. He said, we discuss internationalism and one word, and yet narrow nationalism govern our activities. We live in an age of paradox and continuing crisis. We talk of peace and prepare for war. Quote end. He adopted a Gandhian approach, reasoning that the conflict rises out of fear, a fear for the unknown, that as we do not know how to measure it exactly, and how some other party or nations will react. Quote end. And fear, in turn, rises from a feeling of alienness. He says that when somebody is alien and when you do not know him, there's always an element of fear coming in from the unknown. Quote end. So I'm not suggesting that the Gandhian wisdom in that regard is representative of the entire Asia, although he kind of creatively embraced a substantial part of it. But what I'm suggesting here is that Gandhi's message clearly matches the theme of the conference of this year, that extending horizons is the first step and the fundamental step of shedding one's fear, which in turn is the key to a lot of current military confrontations.